Good day to all. This will be our second part for business hardware discussions. Make sure to check out the first part so that you can relate with our next discussions. The first part would be imaging, or our first discussions will be all about imaging, which will involve conversion of documents into images as the word image itself. Benefits would be it would save paper and would result to more efficient retrieval and filing. Knowing that we don't have to file them in the actual physical world space, we can use the digital space for saving of certain files and documents. And with that, we can easily retrieve the files online. Nowadays, we have the cloud-based computing and saving and storage facility wherein we can scan document images to certain parts of the databases or the records elsewhere. And just like with the imaging that we've mentioned a while ago, we can easily retrieve the files or get the files as we use such. Now, we can also save Mother Earth on that sense. We can be environmental since the original paper documents can also be recycled or kept so that we can just maintain and keep the scanned or the soft copies of the documents. So in that sense, we can also save Mother Earth in the long run, which is the thing nowadays that we are going to involve environmental aspects as part of sustainability and strategic plans and reporting of the company. So you can check out further discussions of that in the respective playlist involving sustainability accounting and environmental accounting and reporting. You can check that out, guys. I would strongly suggest that you check that out. Then after that is speech recognition. We've mentioned about the computers in which we can attach microphones. So microphones can process audio signals or audio inputs or information. So just like the voice that we are going to input into the computer. And the speech or voice recognition is the process of translating human speech into computer readable data and instructions. As I talk now, the computer can save the file, can save such actual voice to be translated into the output. So that's the advantage nowadays. Like this one, we are using, for example, the Zoom platform. We can basically transfer the information from ourselves to the respective meeting and to the recorded version. Receives input from microphone and processes it with software. Speech-operated computers may increase noise level in offices and add distraction. So that's the sad thing, though. That's why we have, of course, some booths which are soundproof. So that's also one thing that we can make use of, especially for call center companies wherein there are really voice agents in which they have to talk to their clients. Now, output devices, of course, will deliver the results of whatever has been processed. And here are our popular output devices. We have the monitors, printers, and speakers. So monitor or screen, the printer in which we can print the documents, and the speaker in which the voice would come out. Then in the future, this is very good, the smell output is even possible. Well, that is something that we can look forward to. The monitors, of course, would be technical in nature on that sense, like the terms here, but let us try our best to look into such and individually. Pixel or picture element would have small dots that make up the images on the monitor. The cathode ray tube, inner side of screen has a layer of phosphoric dots that make up the pixels. So that's also one thing that we can really look into about this one. So this is something that, and again, this is something that is scientific in nature, but there's a tube on the monitor. For the monitor, it can be flat panel. So that's a type. And this one is something that we know of, the LCD monitor, wherein there is liquid crystal that fills the screen. So this is usual, for example, for cell phones, wherein if, for example, if let's just say the screen would break, we can see really the liquid crystal that would leak or come out to the screen. Now, the next one would be still monitors. The price would depend on the size, brightness, the contrast ratio, and the higher the better, and also the pixel as well. What I've said or what we've mentioned a while ago, the picture element. in which these are the small dots that make up the images on a monitor. And that's why a lot of people would be saying, like, if we use Messenger to transfer certain pictures from our phone or whatever source that, and then to another, then we can see that the quality of the picture becomes pixelated. So we can really see the small dots that we are referring here. And then the resolution is a measure of picture sharpness. And that would involve the number of pixels in the width and height of the screen. For printers, printers can be non-impact, which means they do not have, or they do not mechanically impact the paper. And then the laser printer is most common in business. What we mean is that when we are going to make an instruction to print, then the printer itself can perform the operation. And that's why we have the laser printer, which is the common one. And then we also have before the inkjet and electrothermal printers. Then speed is measured in pages per minute or ppm, and the density is measured in dots per inch. So these are information that we have to know about printers. On another hand, there are impact printers in which such can reproduce image by using mechanical impact. And one of that is the dot matrix, which is something that I can still recall way back from high school, wherein if we print some documents, the documents are to be printed like the dots as being shown. We can really see literally the dots. And I can also recall the paper used at that point in time. So that paper is like the one used with the respective ring bind at the side or the side of the respective pages. So those are the types of printers. Then storage media, as explained, we can store our information on different medium or media. Data must be stored on non-volatile medium, meaning to say that the medium or the media is or are not easily affected or destroyed with, for example, electrical power. Data is retained even when the storage device is not connected to electrical power, which is something that we should know of, like the USB or flash drive. If we are not plugging that in with a USB port, still the information is saved there. The file, the photo, or the music, MP3 or MP4 files or whatever, they're saved there. And if we plug that in on the port, so that's the time that we can see what contents there are on the flash memory drive. Storage devices differ in the technology used to maintain data and physical structure. So some are high-tech, some are able to save a lot of information, some are not. Then if we evaluate the storage devices, we compare cost, the capacity, the access speed, and access mode. The latter three would be greater or bigger or faster than the greater the cost, obviously. For modes of access, we have sequential storage in which we organize the data one after another. Must read through all the records first that are stored prior to the desired record. So, example, before we can get file number 10, we have to go through file 1 to 9. For direct access, we can go directly, random direct access, so or random access memory or the RAM, in which we can actually look into the information directly. For flash drives, we've said about that, flash memory drives or flash drives, because literally when we plug on the USB port, they would flash. Then USB stands for Universal Serial Bus. Direct access storage media is the only practical way to organize and query databases. Yes, because can we just imagine if you have millions of files being saved and we have to go through number one to get the millions. So that would take a lot of time. Then modes of access, as said, sequential versus direct data. For magnetic tapes, these are certain literal tapes that not necessarily anymore the cassette tape version, but even the circular version like the CDs and DVDs. So although the magnetic tapes could be somehow the old look of what we have today of the CDs and DVDs versus such. So they can be in tape recorders and VCRs usually as cartridges. They provide lowest cost. The bytes per dollar can back up all data, takes a long time to copy from tape. Of course, this is the so-called the old version of saving files. And because of their capacity to be kept, then tapes become or are unreliable after long periods of time or usage. There could be scratches, there could be some issues of the tapes as we go along the way. So good thing that as we progress, there are also some advantages now with certain information that we can save on certain storage devices. Then we also have the disks. They are most widely used storage medium. These includes or they include hard disks and floppy disks. Hard disks or hard drives normally are with the computers. They can save a lot of information. Floppy disks are the ones that we have known, for example, from high school, but such can save only a little information, but it looks so cute though. Hard disk would be the stack of several rigid platters installed in the same box that holds the CPU. It can store up to 1 terabyte of data, and then it can be more nowadays. External hard disks connect to computer through USB port, just like again the flash memory drive. For optical discs, we have the CDs and the DVDs, in which they stand for respectively compact discs and digital video discs. So in terms of saving and recording, then we have the disk surface to reflect light in different ways. It's somehow technical in nature. For compact discs, they can be read-only. I recall a certain file that was saved by a certain friend in read-only format, so we cannot obtain the information anymore. This is really good, for example, for files like audio and video being saved, and we don't want such to be corrupted. We also have recordable. We can still add information, and rewritable. So we can read and rewrite the information. We can delete and we can save another one. DVDs would be containing more storage capacity, like 4.7 gigabytes per side, because normally there are two sides for the DVDs. Optical discs are slower than hard disks, of course. That's the reality though. Hard disks or our hard drives are in the computers. Optical tape, on another hand, uses same technology as optical disks to store and retrieve data. Bits are organized sequentially, similar to magnetic tapes. So it's like the optical disc version of the hard disk. So optical tape is for the magnetic tape. All right, so another one is flash memory. That is something that we really are familiar of. The writable memory chip that holds content without power. In terms of power, if we plug in, the power consumed is very little, then we don't need to have the constant power supply. We can access fastly, and it is immune to shock or vibration, but that's relative. In my experience, there are only a few times that the flash memory drives failed me. Available as memory card, that's true, and USB drive. Another term that we can look into is the solid state disk, in which storage media does not have or that does not have latency time, meaning the time that it would just stop or pause for the meantime. Next would be the terms DAS, NAS, and SAN. DAS means direct access storage, in which we can directly access the disks or tapes connected to server. And with that, we can easily deploy and manage, and it would relieve any of servers workload. That's true, since again, we can access the information immediately. Next would be NAS. NAS is a network attached storage device that is designed for networked storage. This would include both the storage media and the software to manage it. What is another thing that we have to look into would be the offloads processing from the server. So basically the storage is attached to the network. So anything that we place in the network would actually be placed also with the storage. And highly scalable, wherein we can extend as much as memory that we can place there. Another one is the SAN, That stands for the storage area network, a network that is fully devoted to storage and transfer of data. It is separated from the rest of the LAN or local area network. We can combine DAS and NAS. Then take note that NAS is a device while SAN is a network, although both are dedicated for storage and form of network. Then can transfer larger blocks of data at higher speeds, but is expensive and complex to manage. Next is RAID or RAID, which stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. Used by the former three, they are basically, or such term, RAID, Redundant Array of Independent Disks, can be fault tolerant. So this means that it can continue even through disk failures due to redundancy. So when information becomes duplicated, so this can continue. The RAID, Redundant Array of Independent Disks, as said. I kept on repeating this because this is something that is mentioned a lot of times in various sources. So please take note of that. Then here are our business considerations in evaluating storage media. When we actually acquire such managers, as managers or future managers, we must consider the following: the purpose of data storage, what's our reason, the amount of data, and of course, the greater the amount of data, of course, we need more memory for our storage devices, and the greater the such, then the greater the cost that we expect, which is our fifth item. Required speed of data storage and retrieval, that's also one thing. The space that we mentioned about the unit and the portability of the device, like can we bring it from one area of, or place to another. That's why in terms of portability, we can really expect our hard disks and drives to be on the sense, if we compare that versus the flash memory drives, the former would not be that portable versus the flash drives. So I would say flash drives would be the most portable in that sense. Then also the memory cards are portable because they are within the cell phones, and cell phones can be brought by us. Cost, yes, that's very true. Reliability and life expectancy. So how reliable our respective storage devices, if ever they are to be used, can we really use them for our certain purposes, like the first one? And then the life expectancy, so how long we can make use of it, and trade-offs of our cost and benefits that we get. So we want more benefits, we expect that the cost would also be higher. And then here are our sample table, which is great, which we can see our business considerations in evaluating storage media with the items that we have mentioned a while ago. So the medium or media, for example, would be magnetic hard disk. Capacity would be high, the retrieval speed and the recording prior is very high, cost is high also because of the first two. Ideal for immediate transactions, you want the transactions to be fast and quick and reliable. Capacity is very high, but here's the limitation that we have mentioned a while ago for hard disk. They would become bulky and heavy. As compared with, let's look at the flash memory. So for that, our flash memory drive would be high capacity, high recording and retrieval speed. Cost also would be high. Ideal for backup and portability because we can bring such elsewhere. Capacity would be medium as compared to magnetic hard disk, but expensive. However, nowadays, I think because this is just like from what year? If we are going to compare this year, then, or even like just, let's say 5 years ago, we can compare the cost of flash memory drive way back with the 2006, that's 15 years ago. So perhaps during that time, the flash memory drives are expensive, but nowadays we have affordable flash memory drives. But of course, with greater storage capacity, we have to take note also with the cost. And here are our considerations as well in purchasing the hardware. power of the equipment, memory size, capacity, and speed, expansion slots and ports. Where can we place our wires, our plugs? Where can we attach such sockets used to connect computer to external devices? Then monitor type and resolution, ergonomics in which we are going to maintain our posture, and we have to consider also health considerations if we are going to make use of the hardware or the computers. Compatibility is very important, that all aspects of the computers so far we are having the hardware will be as much as possible, and of course that's our target, to be in accordance to items being mentioned prior, the four of them, because if they are in accordance also with the prior four, meaning to say they are compatible, and as well as the software and networks, which will be discussed further in the next topics or chapters that we will have. Also, the hardware footprint, meaning the physical size of equipment, how reliable our vendors are, and also the after sales services. Are they going to provide warranties? And then the policy is there and the support. Also the power consumption. So how many volts are being consumed by the computers? And then also the noise being created, especially with our hardwares used, like the microphones discussed a while ago, and the cost involved. So cost is very important because this is the business world. Backward compatibility is the capability to work with older hardware or software. So example, we purchased a new hardware and it can still process, or it can still include in its operations old softwares, which is the normal case or usual case. The latter versions can make use of the older versions. Then we have here the example of a hardware evaluation form with those factors being mentioned and the scores that we can provide. And there would be some sort of at the bottom guidelines, like if the score is this or this range, then that would be excellent, then very good, or fair, and then poor. So of course, if we are going to have the standard, we can perhaps look into the very good. And then if not, we can lower that down to good. But poor is that we are going to look for other suppliers then. And so that we can also consider the factors that are very important. In terms of scalability, which means that resources can be expanded or upgraded to provide increased power, we mentioned that a while ago, we just have to take note that not all is scalable. I'm talking about the hardware. And leasing hardware or renting of the hardware is a valid option to avoid short useful lifetime or the hardware. So we can rent, for example, for very costly hardware. And if we are thinking of the obsolescence of that, meaning if we talk about the technology that is ever changing, so certain hardware can be rented by us for the meantime or time being. To summarize, we need to understand hardware because of important purchasing decisions. Then computers are classified according to power. The greater the power, the greater the cost. CPU is the brain or heart of any computer. It is within the systems unit again, which is like the black box. It can process the instructions provided by the user. The clock rate is like the heartbeat rate of human beings that measures the speed of a CPU in the processing. Data worth is the number of bits the computer can process in a single cycle. Computer power is the one that would refer to the speed, memory size, and the number of processor cores. So nowadays you have the octa-core if we think about that, but not everyone can afford such. RAM versus ROM. RAM is volatile. It forms the largest part of computer's memory, but we can access the information immediately from elsewhere. On the other hand, the ROM is non-volatile. It does not require any power. Imaging is very important because we can save paper and we can save, of course, our monies consumed in using paper. For the analysis, if we evaluate external storage, we look into these items mentioned: transfer rate, capacity, portability, and the form of data organization supported. If data is being kept, we can organize them sequentially or directly. But directly is okay or better so that we can save time and energy. Databases would be best. It would require direct access storage devices. When purchasing hardware, as explained a while ago, we need to look into considerations as cost, power, scalability, and compatibility. Now, for IT, unfortunately, risks or certain dangers as to health can happen. That's why ergonomics, the science of maintaining and preserving health in the workplace, especially for computerized or technological environment, must be kept. One example of the sickness could be the carpal tunnel syndrome, wherein if we are not properly making use of our hands in typing on the keyboards, then it might create some painful sensations and all on the muscles of our hands and connecting to our arms. And with that, thank you everyone for listening to our discussions. Hopefully you got something from this session. Thank you very much and God bless us all.